So we're going to look at solving trigonometric equations, and the point is, if you can already solve equations, so there's nothing special about these particular equations, they're just equations. So just to remind you, you should be fairly happy with solving type 1 equations and type 3 equations. And just to remind you, type 1 equations, there's one unknown and we use the function machine. And type 3 equation are where we notice there's a fraction involved, and we deal with that by looking at the denominator and multiplying each term by the denominator. So this is intended just to be a reminder, and now we're going to go on and look at solving trigonometric equations, and there's going to be only 3 types. This is the first type, and the key point here is you must recognize that we have this unknown angle. This is the Greek letter theta, and rather than use an x for an unknown, we use the Greek letter theta because that is a cue for the fact that it's an angle that is the unknown. But anyway, it doesn't really matter, it's the unknown. You must recognize this straight away, see that it's an unknown angle, and we just put our pen down. We pick up the calculator and we press the shift button, and then whatever the trigonometric ratio is, in this case it's sine, it could have been cos, it could have been tan. And then when you've pressed shift sign, you just put into your calculator, into the bracket, whatever is written on the right hand side. So we can use the fraction button and just put in a half. And when we press equals, you should find the answer you get is 30 degrees. And the beauty of this, you haven't had to do any working out at all. If you've recognized, if you've spotted that it's an unknown angle and you just immediately picked up your calculator and pressed the shift button, then all you're going to do is write down what you see on your calculator. It's all there for you, and you can write down that equals 30 degrees. So be on a keen lookout for that, because if you spot it, you don't have to do any working out at all. This is the next type of trigonometric equation you might come across. So we're going to solve this in the usual way. We're going to classify it, and immediately I notice there's a fraction. Therefore it's a type 3. And we know what to do when it's a fraction. It says multiply each term by the denominator. In this case the denominator is 7, so we'll times that by 7 and that by 7. And then we'll notice that this cancels out. We've got a times by 7 only to divide it by 7, so we can cancel that out. And we're left with a equals 7 times cos 30. And we can simply put that into our calculator. And what we get there, hopefully, is 6.06 to 2 decimal places. And so we can see there, although this has been a trig equation, because we've known how to solve equations, we've not had to do anything extra. And finally, this is the third type. So we look at it. It's not an unknown angle, so we can't do that. We can't just pick up the calculator and press the inverse tan button. We've got to treat it as normal. So I look and I notice there's a fraction there, so it's a type 3. And I know with a type 3, multiply each term by the denominator. The denominator is a, so I'm going to multiply this by a and this by a. And just as before, I noticed that this cancels because 10 times a only to be divided by a, these cancel. So again, just to be clear, I'll write it down. So what we're left with is a tan 40 degrees equals 10. Now, we're not done. This is a two-step problem. But when I look at this, a times tan 40 equals 10. It's a type 1 equation now. We've got one unknown, and we use the function machine. It's always the unknown value that we feed into the function machine. And this is telling us to times a by tan 40. And with the function machine, because that's all there is going on the left, so that's it. We come back around and we write down the inverse, the opposite, underneath. Well, the opposite of times tan 40 is divide by tan 40. And we're done. I'll scribble this out so this doesn't confuse us. And this is the instruction, what to carry out to both sides. Divide by tan 40. So I divide the left by tan 40 and I divide the right by tan 40. And I notice this cancels. Times in a by tan 40 only to go on and divide it by tan 40. So that cancels. And I'm left with a is equal to 10 over tan 40, which I can just put into my calculator. And I find that a is equal to 11.92 to 2 decimal places. And there we have it. So just take it steady with these equations. The first one is the easy one. Look for the unknown angle, because then you just put your pen down, you pick up your calculator and you press shift, whatever it is, sine, cos or tan. If there's a fraction, you're going to multiply everything by the denominator, and that might be it. Or, as in this case, it's a two-step problem, and you'll go on and realize that you've now got a type 1 equation, and so you'll use the function machine to solve.